how did you manage to miss the Beatles, and how did you manage to miss Michael Jackson?
Mm. Now I'm embarrassed. It's, well, I didn't actually miss the Beatles. When I was seven, my mom and dad took me to see A Hard Day's Night. And bear in mind, I had just fallen in love with classical music and it's Zach Perlman. And so we went to see this movie, and all it was screaming teenage girls who were, of course, big girls to me, and these guys with weird hair yelling and screaming like Hard Day's Night, and it wasn't even musical to listen to at the time. And so I kind of, what on earth is that all about? Ran in the opposite direction every time everybody mentioned them. Didn't have a radio, didn't have a television, so basically managed immediate blackout for years. And when I did, when I never had any time. When I was 19, I started having babies. I had 4 babies in 5 years. I had loads of albums, but I knew where they came from and who they came from, and I was busy playing myself and all that sort of thing. And I didn't I discovered the Beatles. Did you know that?
Yeah, right.
when I was about in my early 30s, I heard some of Paul McCartney's catalog, and I couldn't believe this was the same person who I had seen when I was a little kid, because it was brilliant and beautiful, and all of the things that the Beatles are the Beatles for. And then John Lennon, some of John Lennon's stuff's just amazing, and the things they wrote together. And I got to know their catalog, and I fell in love with Paul McCartney more. I think he's my favorite. But I loved what they did, Michelle, and just all of it, all of the beautiful stuff. I like melodic music a lot. I'm very fond of melody, and so I do love the Beatles. And I managed to miss them because, as I said, I was so busy playing and doing these things myself. And I'm not, I still don't watch TV. We don't even have TV. We have a television, but we watch movies on it. I still don't own a radio, and so I'm sure I'm missing lots of geniuses out there now. But that was a big miss. Yes. And it's just that whenever anybody mentioned the Beatles, I kind of switched off, because I had this preconceived 7-year-old image, and I didn't imagine they could have possibly become what I found out that they always were.
And Michael Jackson?
Michael. Oh, I love Michael. Well, because Michael embodies everything that I love about music, insofar as he's always creating. I'm always creating, never not creating. He dances, I danced. He sings, I sang. I also played, but Michael, I can't quite do all the. I do a lot of the things. I use my iPhone, or before I had an iPhone, I used my cassette recorder, and to do whatever it was that I woke up from dreams, or just had in my waking dreams, to put down. Same thing. But I watched him, and I thought he was just fabulous. Of course he was. He was, the best I've ever seen as far as an entertainer goes. But Michael too was this shy, beautiful person, and that is one of my biggest regrets, that I never got to meet him, and I never got to work with him, because I would have loved to have done I Just Can't Stop Loving You, or actually that one would have been great. But anything with him would have been really something to do, because he was such a perfectionist. So am I. But I love him too as a person. Everything I know about him, I don't believe any of the rubbish that you hear, any of the bad stuff, which I consider rubbish. But I managed to miss him because I was a missionary, and missionaries don't listen to rock music. That was a bad thing to do. So I was so busy anyway, doing benefit concerts and this all over the world. I managed to miss all of the the things that Michael was doing. I never once saw him in concert. I've seen all the the things that are taped and recorded, and there are many, and I'm really grateful for that. But I don't know, because I would have made a huge effort to work with him, and I've never actually done that for anyone. Well, John, I crossed the ocean to play with John, and the other person would have been Michael, because I feel like I could have been allowed to do that if he might have found a common ground to be allowed to let me do that, to work with him in some way, and I would have loved that. But I don't know how I managed to raise it. The kids had Thriller, and we went to church one day, and they said that it was bad to listen to rock music, and the kids all had they only had Thriller. That I forget how they got it, a present or something, but they loved Michael Jackson, and I didn't really, I was too busy being their mom to actually figure out who Michael Jackson was. And I saw a picture of him where, and he was doing the crotch thing that he's famous for, and I wasn't overly, impressed with that particular still photograph, not knowing anything about him at all. And so the kids took seriously what they heard in church, and so they went and had a little powwow, the three of them that were born and big enough at that point. And they, before we woke up, put Michael Jackson's album in the garbage, because they felt they shouldn't have this was a bad thing. And I'd never heard a track on this album either. They'd just been given it, and they just found out this was a bad thing, but they also felt that, well, Daddy had at least 300 rock albums, from Emerson, Lake and Palmer to Focus to even Abbey Road. They thought that was rock music. And he had all that, and so they threw those out just to help, save him some time. So he couldn't say a word about it, because we had taken him to church, and we had told him that this is what was to be taken seriously. So there were tears, not over Michael Jackson, over the 300 rock that he collected over about a decade or more. Anyway, so not only did I miss Michael Jackson at that point, I had several shots at it and blew them all, but it was kind of a renaissance in our house, and we had to teach them that there's moderation in all things, and not all things rock are bad, and not all things that are called rock are, have to do with anything bad. So that's how I managed to miss Michael, but I hope I'm making up for it now, because I couldn't be a bigger fan.